Hey everybody, Nebraska Yak here, and today's Yak hack is how to create a paddle leash. Now a paddle leash can be very helpful, especially if you're fishing on a river where you maybe capsize or your paddle just gets away from you for a minute and all of a sudden it's going down the river without you. And let's face it, nobody wants to be up a creek without a paddle. This here is a completed paddle leash, and there's a couple different loop sizes in there that I'll show you how to make. And how you'd use it is if you have a paddle like this bending branches or a Warner paddle that splits in the middle here, you just slip it over the paddle itself, and then when you connect it back up, it's now connected and won't go anywhere once you connect it to your kayak, either by a carabiner or any other method. The only parts you're going to need to make your paddle leash is some bungee shock cord, a heat shrink. This one's a 1/2 inch. We're going to cut in half. You're going to need some 12 gauge galvanized wire, and the only tools you're going to need is a pair of scissors to cut the cord and the heat shrink, and a pair of needle nose pliers that we're going to use to cut the wire and to crimp it. So let's get started. Now, depending on how tall you are, it'll kind of determine how much you want to use. I'm about 5'8", which is pretty average, and I use about 3 feet. So we'll just cut the 3 feet of cable here. Put the rest aside. We're just going to make a loop. We want a good size loop this time because we don't know how wide our paddle is going to be, and we want it to slide on easily. And we're just going to take our metal and we're just going to bend it around to start with. Now with your first bend in the cable, you just want to make your loop the right size, which just make it large enough so that it can stretch around your paddle in the middle. And then you're just going to take your needle nose pliers and start cinching down this center part here a bit until it's nice and tight and you can cut off the ends. Now with our wire cinched a little bit tighter and the loop not going anywhere, we can cut off the ends here so that we can crimp it down a little bit further. Now that we have the ends cut off, we can crimp these down just a little bit tighter so that our heat shrink will fit over it. Now with the wire nice and tight around our loop, we're going to take our heat shrink and we're going to cut it in half. We're going to place half of it over the loop here and over the wire. It's going to be kind of tight, but that's perfect. So I've slid the heat shrink over the loop, and the metal is up here at the very top. And I like to have my heat shrink a little bit longer than the other side of the loop, just so it's completely waterproof and I don't have to worry about fraying on that other side. One tool I forgot to mention was a lighter. We're going to need that to cinch down the heat shrink here. Now with the heat shrink shrunk down to size, it's now waterproof down here, and we've got a good connection that's not going to create any snags and it'll last a long time. Now what we have to do is repeat the same process on the other side. Keep in mind, you might want to do 2 different sizes of loops depending on if you have 2 different paddles, or you may have a bigger one or smaller one in the future. So if you do them slightly different sizes, that's perfect. Okay, I've repeated the process on the other end. Now I have one loop that's nice and large for my paddle, and one that's the perfect size for my carabiner on the other side. Now let's see how we can attach it. Now we have one end of the paddle leash attached to the paddle and the paddle connected, and with the other end we can take one of our no-knot carabiners, and now we are attached to our kayak with a leash, and this paddle, if you ever lose it, won't go anywhere away from you. If you don't know what a no-knot carabiner is, I highly recommend you go back to my other videos where I cover exactly how to make one. Basically, it makes it very silent when it's knocking against your kayak, which helps a lot. And you can see here now that when I use my paddle and I bring it up to where I would be sitting, I have plenty of slack as I paddle back and forth, and it won't get in my way. Well, that's it for this yak hack. I sure hope you found it useful and can use it yourself. If you have any questions, just leave a comment. I'll be glad to answer it. But that's it for now. I want to thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you on the water.